Hello, I'm James Ford, and I'm the guiding teacher at Empty Moon Zen. I've been talking with some friends lately about life after religion. As we watch what's going on, and yet how there is this mysterious calling urge that many of us are now calling spirituality. And I thought maybe I could share with you some thoughts about this, and maybe even throw out a pointer or two that could be of use. We look around us and we see the world's religions in turmoil. Too much certainty, too much violence, too much of the things that make little sense in a world where tribalisms of various sorts seem to be at the very heart of much of the ills that are surrounding us. And yet, many still feel some calling. It's the deep urge of the heart that phrase, spiritual but not religious, points to. Today, I'd like to briefly look at what the spiritual life might mean as the world's religions seem to be convulsing, if not crumbling. The spiritual life is a life focused on that which gives us meaning and purpose. It delves into those things that our most distant ancestors felt: awe and wonder and fear. This is why the word spiritual means breath. For those called into it, the spiritual life is as important as the air we breathe. And it turns out, even for many who are revulsed at many of the claims of the world's religions, still feel a call into something that seems to deserve that word, spiritual. I've come to see that there are three different ways people across cultures and time have taken on the spiritual life with intention and discipline. And both those things, intention and discipline, are necessary. Setting a goal and then following through, step by step. In case you only have a couple of minutes here, the three ways are monastic, priestly, and householder. Each are part of religion, but none, not even the priestly, is necessarily bound by a particular religion. If we define religion as the set of beliefs that set one group aside from all others, beliefs that define and reinforce cultural norms. I want to focus mostly on what the spiritual life for a householder can look like, because I think that's the emerging normal. But I feel it's important to be aware of the other paths as well. In my own life, I've touched all three. The monastic part briefly, only a couple of years. Priestly for most of my adult life, and the householder commingling with the priest. I have walked a way between. The bulk of my adult life has been both as a Zen Buddhist, which is itself a radical form of Buddhism that some assert has actually even moved outside of Buddhism, but still is very much an East Asian thing. And as a Unitarian Universalist, that peculiar spiritual tradition at the farthest left wing of the Christian spectrum, so far, in fact, that most no longer define it as a Christian sect, although still firmly a Western thing. This place between them has liberated me from being too sure of any one set of truth claims. This way between has opened me to the great spiritual practices that happen on the other side of religion. Curiosity, wonder, not knowing. It's a perpetual opening of the heart. I believe this perspective between is emerging all around the globe. People straining at the bounds of cultural certainty are finding ourselves, turning to a more universalist approach to the mystery that surrounds us. Sometimes as a monastic, on occasion as a priest, and most of all, especially these days, as a householder. A monastic is someone who has resigned from the world to some greater or lesser degree. A nun or a monk vows into a rhythm of life that is totally focused on the great goal of liberation or salvation. This path takes different shapes in the different religions, and even within them. Some monastics practice alone, usually after a period of formation, and almost always with some continuing kind of a supervision, from elders. Others spend a lifetime in community, and a few mix it up. Mostly, but not always, monastics are celibates, relinquishing the joys, obligations, and sorrows of intimate relationships. Some do this for a lifetime. Others, like me, do it for a period of time. Priests are another form of spiritual practitioner, one whose step away from the ties of Orthodox religions are often, let me rephrase that, those of us who have stepped away from Orthodox religions might miss. Priests give some significant part of their life to the rites of religion, including with that negative sense I'm using here. But there's more to it. They perform rituals that keep the world spinning, that heal the broken heart, that connect the world and the heavens. Again, each religion uses priests who are usually prepared and marked out through ritual acts. They might be nuns or monks, but they can just as easily live as householders. The rise of interfaith ministers in our time and place hints at this continuing need, even if we really are moving past the old religions. But that said, then there's the householder path. Sometimes they're called lay practitioners, lay as opposed to those professionals, those monastics or priests. But I think in general, if we're talking about serious practitioners of the intimate ways, householder becomes a better term. It acknowledges the special marks of their engagement, taking on intimate relationships, making a living, and continuing with responsibilities in this world, even as they commit to the intimate way, to the paths of the wise heart. The foundation is a regular practice. As a Zen person, that cornerstone for it all is Zen meditation, called in Japanese shikantaza, or just sitting. Others do mindfulness, others the Jesus prayer. There are many gates to the intimate way. What is critical is that part of most days is devoted to this practice. In addition, I look for ways to join others in intensive retreats, taking on most of the same disciplines as monastics for somewhere between half a day to 7 days. Others attend 90 or 100-day retreats, although that's obviously difficult and for many householders impossible. The most important thing, however, is the rhythm of a regular practice. Joining others in liturgical life can be very important as well. Liturgy is as in work of the people. It can be as simple as chanting, singing, or reciting sacred texts, usually with intentions set and usually said dedicating the merit of these projects to the benefit of beings everywhere. Here we find a regular gathering, following whatever is an appropriate rhythm, celebrating the mysteries of birth and coming of age, of vowed relationships, and of death, along with the many small and great joys and sorrows along the way of our lives. Christian communion, Hindu puja, Buddhist service or liturgy. There are many different ways to join into the great dance. Study is another important component. Reading one's sacred texts, maybe studying other people's sacred texts, but investigating the wisdom of the ancestors can be enormously enriching, sometimes so valuable you could call it critical. And Here's another important thing. If you're a householder, being involved in events beyond your immediate concern is also important. In modern democracies, this includes involving oneself in the nitty-gritty, making decisions, taking stands, and engaging. We see this nearly every day, a call for some kind of stand, of some kind of engagement. However, with a caution, the call ultimately is to intimacy. So, one's politics needs always to be challengeable and challenged. The quest for justice, which I find co-arising with a quest for meaning and purpose, needs to be tempered first by recalling one never knows all one needs to, that we're driven by impulses we barely ever fully understand or even are aware of. And by we, I mean you and me. And in the last analysis, mercy is the true handmaid of the divine. For the moment, that's it. Don't want to take too much time. Just a few pointers on the spiritual life, the intimate way after religion. Well, other than to remind you how this life and death thing, it passes so quickly. Don't waste your time. Every moment is precious. Pay attention.